Hey guys, welcome to that time again. Sports and shorts of sorts. It's your man City, doing it again. Episode 57 here. We just, like Limp Bizkit, we just keep on rolling. So, just as we do in every episode, we're going to start by doing our jersey honoring here, honoring people that wore the number that coincides with the episode. Being this is episode 57, let's hop right to it. We'll start on the baseball diamond. Starting with left-handed pitcher Johan Santana. The Venezuelan player was discovered in 1994 by a scout working for the Astros at the time. This scout, Andres Rainier, he convinced Santana's parents to let him attend Houston's academy, which they used to have in Valencia, Venezuela. The team technically wasn't allowed to sign Santana because it was the strike going on. So he came in, had 6 weeks of training. They didn't decide if he would play outfield or pitch. They said, yo, can we have you pitch? And Santana almost quit. He was almost like, fuck this. But they decided to keep him in. It kind of backfired for the Astros because they didn't have him protected. It was this weird Rule 5 draft. I didn't really know about this, but it's a yearly draft. Prevents teams from stockpiling players and putting them in the minors, preventing other teams from bringing up to the pros. You can only have so many. He was available. He got drafted by the Twins, and yeah, he kind of had a bit of a rough start to his career, putting up just dreadful numbers, going back to the minor leagues, but he just kept working at it, and he got called up and he did his thing. He worked on his changeup. He got it where at times in the minor leagues, he was throwing 20 a game, like unreal, but he also led the league in wild pitches, so he was a little bit of a mixed bag. But in 2003, he transitioned from relief to the starting rotation, had some success there. The following season, he had perhaps one of the best second halves in baseball ever, in modern time at least. Became the first pitcher since 1961 to give up 4 fewer hits in 10 straight starts. His 13-0 record broke the old mark shared by Bert Hooton and Rick Sutcliffe, total household names. He'd end up setting the Twins record for strikeouts with 265, passing Bert by 11. Then he'd lead the league in ERA and strikeouts, winning the Cy Young as well. Following season, he was a bit of a down year. The team didn't really help him offensively, but he'd again lead the AL in strikeouts and make an all-star game. 2006, Johan Santana looked like the best pitcher in baseball, earning the pitcher's triple crown, which hadn't been done in the majors since Dwight Gooden, episode 16, had done it in 1985. He led the AL in strikeouts, ERA, and wins, earning his second Cy Young of his career as well, becoming the 14th player in MLB history to win multiple Cy Youngs. The next season was Santana's last in Minnesota, where he struggled a bit, but fielded pretty well and won his only Gold Glove award of his career. He'd get traded to the Mets, where he'd sign a massive deal, becoming the Mets opening day starter. His first season was pretty good. He'd set the Mets single-season record for strikeouts by a lefty, breaking Joe Matlick's 35-year-old record. Going forward, Santana would struggle with injuries, barely staying on the mound. He'd missed the entire 2011 season while recovering from an anterior capsule surgery on his left shoulder. He'd be an opening day pitcher for 2012, and it was big for him. It was the first time he was really pitching in the majors in like almost 2 years. He dealt with some injuries that season, but then he'd have one of the most memorable moments, if not the most memorable moment of his career. The first no-hitter in New York Mets' 51 years of existence. And it was only 8th time someone threw a no-hit against the defending champions. He had to throw a career-high 134 pitches to achieve the feat, easily his career high. But man, what a performance. The following season, he'd tear that capsule again, and although he tried to come back, his career was pretty much done. What a career, though. 4 All-Star games, 2 Cy Youngs at no-hitter, led the AL in strikeouts and ERA 3 times. He won that Triple Crown as a pitcher. Very elusive club, only 39 times it's been done in MLB history. Santana's been inducted into the Minnesota Twins Hall of Fame and the Venezuelan Baseball Hall of Fame, but he hasn't got much love for the Baseball Hall of Fame. He had minimal votes, and he's been taken off the ballot. Like I said, he didn't have a long career with big numbers, but that window, that peak window he had, man, when he was rolling, he was rolling. Sticking with pitchers, the next 57 on our list is a relief pitcher, talking about right-hander Francisco Rodriguez, another pitcher from Venezuela. He was called K-Rod. He signed with the Angels as an undrafted amateur free agent in 98, and he was originally a starting pitcher that was moved to the relief after dealing with some injuries. He was called up to the big show, and at the time, he was the youngest player in the American League. The team had some injuries in the bullpen, so Rodriguez stepped up, emerging as a postseason hero, winning 5 postseason games despite never winning a major league game, regular season game before. He hadn't played much in the regular season, so teams didn't have a lot to go off to study him, and it showed. He was killing people. He was a big reason the LA Angels won the World Series in 2002, and who'd have thought a rookie setup man would also pick up a win in the World Series against those Giants? 20 years old, 286 days, he became the youngest pitcher to ever win a World Series game. He'd continue to pitch great, working his way into becoming the Angels' full-time closer, another position he'd thrive in. In 2008, K-Rod set some history, recording 62 saves and 69 opportunities. Those 62 saves was a new MLB record for one season that still stands. That would be the 3rd season that K-Rod led the AL in saves, and the following season he'd signed a huge deal to go to the Mets. It was the only time Francisco Rodriguez did not wear 57. It was because of the guy we just mentioned before. Yohan Santana was wearing it, so K-Rod had to wear 75 for the only time in his career. He'd make one All-Star game in New York, and after a few seasons was traded to Milwaukee. He wasn't a big fan of being the setup man for closer John Axford, and after a few seasons, he'd get traded to the Orioles. He struggled there and got traded back to the Brewers. He had a resurgence there in Milwaukee, going back to a closing role, making his final 2 All-Star games of his career there. Get traded to the Tigers, where in his time there, he'd become just the 6th pitcher in MLB history to record 400 saves. However, his tenure in Detroit his game diminished. He's getting older. He tried to come back a few times. Didn't really work out there, but man, he was one of the best closers of his generation, He was really good. 6-time All-Star, 2-time Relief Man Award winner, 3-time AL saves leader, and he is the most, like I said, the record for most saves in a season was 62. His career 437 saves is 4th all-time in MLB history, and like I mentioned, as a rookie, he was a huge part of that World Series Angels team, and he's honored in Milwaukee by making the Brewers Wall of Honor. The next 57 on the list didn't have the most impressive resume as a pitcher, but he had some good seasons and some very unique physical attributes. I'm talking about reliever Antonio Alfonseca. He is a Dominican-born pitcher, signing with the Expos, not making an MLB appearance for them, and he'd end up being taken by the Florida Marlins in a 93 expansion draft. He wouldn't make a debut with the Marlins until 97. Might sound familiar to what I just talked about with K-Rod, but he was a rookie, and he was a big part of a World Series winning team, winning a World Series with the Florida Marlins as they beat the then-called Cleveland Indians in the 1997 World Series. Alfonseca's best season came in 2000, still with the Marlins, when he led the National League in saves with 45 and won Relief Man of the Year. He'd also go on to play with the Cubs, Braves, Marlins again, Rangers, Phillies, and he'd call it a career. I mentioned his unique attributes. Alfonseca had nicknames like El Pulpo, the Octopus, and Six Fingers, and this was because he's got a condition known as polydactyly. He has 6 fingers on each hand and foot. Yeah, I don't know how that helped with pitching, but it was a trait his grandfather also possessed, and they were pretty pumped about it. So good on you, I guess. Extra digits. Sticking with pitchers, I'll talk about a current one that we're 57, a great young pitcher who unfortunately he's missing the rest of this season after having to have Tommy John surgery. I'm talking about Atlanta Braves. Shane Bieber. Oh, man, I got the wrong one there. My bad. Wrote this quick here. Anyway, Bieber, he enrolled at UC Santa Barbara as a walk-on to play collegiate ball, leading the Cleveland drafting him, not Atlanta, sorry, in the 4th round of the 2016 draft. He'd make his debut in the minor leagues with the Mahoning Valley Scrappers, also playing with some cool name teams, the County Captains, the Lynchburg Hillcats, and Akron Rubber Ducks. Yeah, all real names. He'd end up getting his major league debut with Cleveland, not Atlanta, Rennie. And the following season, he'd make the 2019 All-Star Game, even winning the All-Star Game MVP. The 2020 season was one of the best pitching seasons you can have. Bieber would end up getting the pitching triple crown, which I just talked about Yohan Santana getting. He led the AL in wins, ERA, and strikeouts. Bieber would win the AL Cy Young that year, but he dealt with some more injuries over the next few seasons. He managed to win a Gold Glove in 2022, but 2023 was an injury-riddled season, and that's what makes Bieber's season worse. He had a great start to this season, striking out 20 batters in 12 innings, so he was just getting back. He's had these injuries, a real Buzz Kellington. Hopefully he can bounce back from this Tommy John surgery, and we can see the guy from 2020, the dominant pitcher he was. The next 57 is another pitcher, a fantastic pitcher that was taken from us way too soon. Tongo Daryl Kyle. He was selected by the Astros in the 30th round of the 1987 draft. To successful times in the minor leagues, he'd enter the majors in 91. He's looking like he was going to get a no-hitter, but he was pulled after 6 innings. Manager Art Howe didn't want to hurt the 22-year-old's arm. 1993 was Kyle's breakout year. He'd make his first All-Star game, and he'd get to pitch a full no-hitter, getting against the Mets. He'd make one more All-Star game in Houston before signing with Colorado. He'd struggle with the Rockies, which led them trading him to the St. Louis Cardinals. Kyle had a resurgence with the Cardinals, would make the All-Star game for the 3rd time in his career. Things were looking like they were turning around for him. And then on June 22nd, 2002, people noticed that he wasn't at the pregame warm-up. So they went to his hotel to do a wellness check and found him under the covers, dead from a heart attack, 33 years old. An autopsy found he had an enlarged heart, and 2 of his coronary arteries were 90% blocked, and there was a blood clot in one. His father had passed away from a blood clot at the age of 44. It was the first time an active Major League Baseball player died during the regular season since 1979, and Yankees Thurman Munson had died in a plane crash. The game was canceled with an emotional announcement. The Cardinals, they honored Kyle by placing a small DK-57 in the bullpen, one that was carried into the new stadium where they play today. The Astros and Rockies did not. They still haven't given out a 57 yet. The Cardinals did a few years ago, giving it to pitcher Zach Thompson, but man, crazy story. Daryl Kyle, gone to 33 years old. Yikes. Wrapping up the baseball portion of the 57s, quick shout out to John Smiley. He played with the Pittsburgh Pirates, where he earned an All-Star nod while leading the NL with 20 wins on the season. He'd also play with the Twins, Reds, and Cleveland. He earned one more All-Star nod as a Red, and that season he was remembered as the guy who gave up the only home run of Tom Glavine's career. You might remember him from episode 47. While warming up with Cleveland, though, Smiley broke his humerus, and yeah, basically that's it. Career was done. Just warming up. He threw his arm out and had to retire. It can just go like that. We'll go from the baseball diamond to the football field. The first number 57 to be mentioned, Ricky Jackson. Fantastic linebacker who played collegiate ball at the University of Pittsburgh. That great play led to the Saints drafting him in the 2nd round of the 81 NFL draft. He was great right out of the gate, playing in all 16 games in his first season, making the NFL All-Rookie team. He was a beast on those Saints defenses where they had the Dome Patrol, that legendary linebacking core that's been mentioned on this show a few times. Sam Mills, episode 51. Pat Swelling, last episode in 56. This linebacking core was something else. With the Saints, Jackson was a 7-time Pro Bowler, 5 second-team All-Pros. He led the league in forced fumbles 4 times. A real ball hawk on the defensive side of the ball. His 13 seasons with New Orleans, he only missed 2 games. And that was a result of an automobile accident in '89. And he actually played the remainder of that season with his jaw wired shut, wearing a specialized helmet. And he got 7.5 sacks that season. That's crazy. He joined the Niners for the last 2 seasons in his NFL career, finally getting that elusive Super Bowl ring in Super Bowl 29, where the 49ers just killed the Chargers. Ricky Jackson would retire with 128 sacks, which has him 16th all-time on the career sacks list. He was named to the Saints' 45th anniversary team, inducted to the Saints Ring of Honor and their Hall of Fame, and Ricky Jackson was inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. An amazing career for a guy I don't think's talked about enough. I didn't know as much about Ricky Jackson until I dive into this shit, and that's why I love it. I love learning about sports. Going to the offensive side of the ball, the next 57, center Dwight Stevenson. He played college ball for the legendary Bear Bryant in Alabama. Coach Bryant called Stevenson the best center he ever coached. A man among children, he said. He was the starting center for the Crimson Tide for 3 seasons and was a member of the back-to-back national championship teams in 78 and 79. He was also named 3-time first-team All-SEC. He was a 2-time second-team All-American, leading the Dolphins to drafting him in the 2nd round of the 1980 NFL Draft. Stevenson was primarily used just as a special teamer until starting center Mark Denard got hurt. Stevenson took his job and never looked back. Some say he was universally recognized as the premier center of the NFL. With Stevenson at center and offensive captain, the Dolphins' offensive line gave up the fewest sacks in the NFL for a record 6 straight seasons. He really took care of the quarterback. He was such a great leader, such a great player, earning 5 Pro Bowls, first team All Pros, 4 first team All Pros, 1 second team All Pro. Fortunately, he sustained a knee injury against the New York Jets in '87, which effectively ended his playing career. Such a shame. He only played 8 seasons in the NFL, but what an impact he had. Named to the NFL 80s All-Decade Team, the NFL 100th Anniversary Team. Dolphins also have him honored, putting him in the Dolphins Honor Roll and their Walk of Fame. And Dwight Stevenson was inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1998. It's a bummer he had a knee injury that ruined his career. We talked about Smiley getting that elbow injury. Just crazy, you know. One injury can take you out of the game. But, you know, we gave a center some love. Let's continue to do it. Next 57, Olin Kreutz. The Hawaiian-born Kreutz played college ball at the University of Washington. He had an incident there where he hit Sekou Wiggs, a teammate, breaking his jaw. Kreutz would continue to play while his teammate rehabbed, and that play earned him first team All Pac-10, consensus All-American, leading the Chicago Bears drafting Kreutz in the 3rd round of the '98 draft. He was consistently great for the Bears, making 6 Pro Bowls, first team All-Pro, second team All-Pro. He started 182 games for the Bears in the regular season, which is second only to Walter Payton. You might remember from episode 34. He did have an incident that was reminiscent of his college days with he broke a jaw of a fellow offensive lineman, Fred Miller. They were both fined. I don't know why Miller was fined, but he had a great career with the Bears, you know. He spent his entire career with the organization until he shocked people signing a 1-year deal to join the New Orleans Saints, and that time did not go well. He played in 4 of their first 6 games, and then he just said, I'm done. He said he quit. He just lost passion for the game. In an interview, he mentioned that he had a confrontation with offensive line coach Aaron Cromer, and during the confrontation, quarterback Drew Brees was inadvertently thrown against the wall, and after that, Kreutz was like, I'm out. But he was an amazing center, you know, named to the NFL 2000s All-Decade Team, one of the 100 greatest Bears. He hasn't been inducted to the Hall of Fame, but there's plenty of debate whether he should get in there or not. I think he's done enough to get in. I know Pro Bowls don't hold as much weight as All-Pros, but I don't know. I think he's going to get in. Anyway, next 57 on this list takes us back to the defensive side of the ball. Clay Matthews Jr., the father of a linebacker we covered on this podcast, former Green Bay Packer Clay Matthews III in episode 52. His pops was pretty good too, you know. He played collegiate ball at USC, where Clay Matthews III would play. He'd win a national championship title with the Trojans, and that great play led to the Browns selecting Clay Matthews 12th overall in the '78 draft, becoming a cornerstone for some amazing Browns teams. And as a Brown, he was a 4-time Pro Bowler, earning 1 second-team All-Pro, leading the league in tackles 4 different times and forced fumbles once. Fortunately, he was on the field for some of the most dramatic losses to the Browns, to any team in NFL history. In '81, they lost to the Raiders on the Red Right 88 play. In the loss in '87, they lost to the Broncos, some guy named John Elway on the drive. And then again to the Broncos the following year, with the Browns involved, fumbling it, known as the fumble. Those 3 plays deserve some recognition on their own. I'll bookmark those for another story time later. But despite that heartbreak, Matthews consistently put up good numbers for that team. And after the '93 season, he'd signed with the Falcons to finish up his career. There, he'd become the oldest player to record a sack at 40 years old, 282 days. Fierce defender, known for longevity, playing in a career that spanned 19 seasons. He's high up on the all-time combined tackled list, too. 1,595 combined tackles have him 7th all-time in NFL history. It's amazing that Clay Matthews Jr. isn't in the Hall of Fame. Like, 7th all-time in tackles and you're not in there? What? His numbers are there. The longevity was there. Cleveland's honored Matthews Jr. as he's been named to the Cleveland Browns legend team and was honored in their Ring of Honor. But how is he not in the Hall of Fame? That's crazy to me. The next 57 on the list is also a linebacker. I'm talking about Tom Jackson. I grew up loving to watch Tom Jackson on ESPN's NFL Countdown, NFL Primetime with Boomer. vividly remember seeing him on TV every Sunday, and he killed it in front of the camera, but he also killed it on the field. He played collegiate ball at the University of Louisville, where his great play led to him getting drafted in the fourth round of the 73 draft by the Broncos. He wore 56 his rookie season before switching up to 57 to get on this list. And he was a big part of those Orange Crush defenses at the Broncos. He earned first team All Pro, 2 second team All Pros, 3 Pro Bowls. He's a member of the Broncos teams and made it to 2 Super Bowls. Unfortunately, he was on the losing end of both of them to the Cowboys and Giants, respectively. When Jackson retired, he would get honored by the only team he ever played for in the NFL, being named to the Broncos' 50th anniversary team, becoming the 14th person to be inducted into the Broncos Ring of Fame. He ranks third only to kicker Jason Elam and the quarterback I mentioned earlier, John Elway, on the all-time list of games played for Broncos at 191. But like I said, Tom Jackson's probably known best for what he's done on TV. He's won the Pete Rozelle Award for excellence in broadcasting, and he's inducted the Pro Football Hall of Fame for his broadcasting. Excuse me. The next 57 on our list is a current linebacker for the New York Jets. I'm talking about C.J. Mosley. He was a beast playing for Nick Saban in Alabama. Mosley was a first-team All-SEC and consensus All-American his junior season, getting the same awards in his senior season, and he also won 2 national championships with the Crimson Tide. This led to Baltimore selecting Mosley 17th overall in the 2014 draft. He was the 4th linebacker drafted and one of 8 Alabama players selected that year. He'd start on a Ravens defense, which isn't a very common thing. He was the first rookie to start on that defense since Haloti Ngata did it. Mosley made an immediate impact, all rookie team honors while earning a second team All-Pro and Pro Bowl in his rookie season. It's crazy. He finished second in Rookie of the Year voting, Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. Some guy named Aaron Donald. You might have heard of him. Mosley was a fixture in a tough Ravens defense, and he'd make 4 second team All-Pros and 4 Pro Bowls. After the 2018 season, he signed a huge deal to join the New York Jets. First season was a little injury-riddled. The second season, he opted out with the COVID-19 virus kicking around. He'd return the following season, and he's been a great player and on a really good Jets defense. In 2022, he'd make his first second-team All-Pro and Pro Bowl with the Jets, first time since leaving Baltimore. And he's a dynamic linebacker. He's a big-time leader on a really good defense that has a lot of expectations going in the next season. Last NFL mention, as you guessed it, another linebacker, current number 57 for the San Francisco 49ers. Dre Greenlaw had a solid career playing the SEC for Arkansas. He'd drop all the way to the 5th round of the 2019 draft where the 49ers would select him. He'd make a lot of teams wish they drafted him earlier. He'd get named to the all-rookie team after a very successful rookie campaign. And even though he hasn't been named to a Pro Bowl team yet, I think there's one in his future. He's become one of the better linebackers in our league, and he's a very important piece on that 49ers defense. In the playoffs last year against the Packers, he had 2 interceptions in that divisional round game. And we all saw it. We hate to remember it. In the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, he was getting hyped to enter the game. He crumbled to the ground. We all kind of figured what it was, and it was what it was. A torn Achilles. He had the surgery. We're hoping rehab goes well. We can see him on the field sooner than later. Leaving the gridiron for the hockey rink, first 57 from hockey to get mentioned, current Detroit Red Wing, David Perron. He's a beast in the QMJHL, leading the Lewiston Maniacs in scoring and helping them make it to the Memorial Cup. This led to the St. Louis Blues selecting him 26th overall in the 2007 draft. Perron didn't speak English very well, and he struggled a bit in St. Louis, needing help from Coach Andy Murray to even help set up a bank account there. When Perron made his debut for the Blues, he was the 5th youngest player to suit up for the club at 19 years old and 137 days. He was in a Blues lineup constantly, well-loved player, and then he was traded to Edmonton, where he played well but dealt with injuries. He was moved to the Penguins, where he wouldn't put up really good numbers compared to what he's usually done. From there, he'd get traded to the Ducks, and after the season he'd want to go back to St. Louis. He struggled a bit in his return, and he was left unprotected in the 2017 expansion draft, so the Vegas Knights scooped him up, where he's part of that expansion team to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, where they came up short against the Capitals, but it was still a great season. After that season, and for the 3rd time in his career, Perron was signed with the Blues. He's like, just take me back. He was a huge part of that Cup run team in 2019, scoring the game-winning goal in Game 5 in that Stanley Cup series against the Bruins. And the Blues would win that series 4-1. First Stanley Cup in their franchise history. He got to raise the cup. Great feeling for him. After a few more seasons, he'd sign with the Red Wings. First time he didn't sign with the Blues. He was usually traded to teams, but he always signed with the Blues. But he switched it up. He signed with the Red Wings, and that's where he plays with now. He's made one All-Star game over his career, and we'll see how his season finishes up in Detroit here. I know they want to try to sneak into the playoffs. Other 57 to get honored from the game is Vancouver Canucks defenseman Tyler Myers, lighting it up in the WHL with the Kelowna Rockets, which led to the Sabres drafting him 12th overall in the 2008 entry draft. Once Myers made his NHL debut, he was dominating on the ice. His great play basically made him the main guy on the line for the Sabres, and he won the Calder Memorial Trophy for best rookie that season. He put up great years in Buffalo before getting traded to the Jets, where he, again, had some good seasons before becoming a free agent and signing with the Canucks, where he's putting up big minutes on one of the best teams in the league right now, so can't hate on that. Much like last episode, there's not a lot of players to wear this jersey in basketball. In 56, last episode, there was one person. 57 doesn't get a lot of rep either. Two players mentioned. Hilton Johnson wore the 57 during his one season with the Golden State Warriors. He was a good player at UConn, but more known for his time played overseas than the NBA. The other 57, big man Mike Muscala, he wore it for his one season in the Boston Celtics. He's a journeyman in the NBA there, but yeah, 57, more than you'd think. Which brings us to our week. This episode, like I said, usually a Monday. It's on a Tuesday. We're getting there, better late than never. We're going to talk about the NCAA tournament, the women's bracket, how it ended. My word. The Elite Eight, at the last episode was airing at last week, the Elite Eight was coming to an end. We had South Carolina and NC State advancing. We were waiting to see the next matchup. Iowa at number 3 LSU. Great battle, a rematch of last year's title games. You had shots, you had drama. You had Angel Reese fouling out where Iowa fans waved by. Caitlin Clark was huge. 41 points, 12 dimes, 7 rebounds as Iowa went back to the Final Four, getting a little revenge there against LSU. The other matchup had number 3 UConn and number 1 USC, a battle between Husky Paige Beckers, who finished with 28 points, 10 boards, and 6 dimes, and Trojan Juju Watkins, who finished with 29 points, 10 boards. Canadian Aaliyah Edwards was really a difference maker in this one. Freshman Juju Watkins, she was very upset in the loss, but she's something else. She set the record for freshman scoring in this loss, but she may be College Player of the Year next season. I don't know, everyone's saying Paige Beckers, and deservedly so. Her team won, but watch out for Juju Watkins next season. Whew. Which just led us to the Final Four matchup between number 3 NC State, number 1 undefeated South Carolina. Game was close at halftime with the Wolfpack actually leading by 1. But then Dawn Staley must have said something to encourage her team because they came out swinging, outscoring the Wolfpack 29-6 in the third quarter as they turned the game on its head, winning by 19 points. Camila Cardoso getting a double-double, 22 points and 11 rebounds as the Gamecocks advanced to the championship game after being 1 year removed. And this set up another dream matchup in the other Final Four game. Caitlin Clark's Iowa taking on Paige Beckers' UConn. One hell of a game. Back and forth. Nika Mule was picking up Caitlin full court, really making her work for everything. Paige Beckers, Aaliyah Edwards, and freshman KK Arnold, they were playing phenomenal ball for UConn, giving them every chance to win. Iowa made huge plays, though. Clark almost had a triple-double, 21 points, 9 boards, 7 dimes. But her big played really big in this one. Hannah Stelke, she found the spots, and she finished them. That was the biggest thing. The game would come down to UConn with the ball, down 1 under 10 seconds. Paige Beckers went to come off a screen, but Aaliyah Edwards, she was called the offensive foul. They called the moving screen. I know you don't want to make that call, but it kind of looked like it in fast motion. Like during the game, I was like, what? But I mean, she was leaning a bit. You hate to see it called, but it was tough. But yeah, that's basically it. That's how it would go. The game would end and Iowa would win. Tough way for UConn to lose. Beckers took it like a champ. That team dealt with injuries all year. But Edwards is declared for the draft from UConn, but Beckers is coming back. Injured stars Yana Alafi, Ezzy Fide, Aubrey Griffin, Ariana Patterson, and Carolina Deschamps. They're all coming back. And it was announced they're getting number 1 recruit of this class, Sarah Strong. She's committed to play at UConn next season. this team stays healthy, or even if they don't, I guess they could be in the Final Four next season. Great run by UConn. So all that led us to this championship game on Sunday, the battle of number ones, a rematch of last year's semifinals. Unbeaten South Carolina going up against Iowa. This game lived up to the hype. Iowa and Caitlin Clark came out on fire. Clark set a championship record with 18 points in the first quarter. Iowa had an early lead, but the Gamecocks, they were just making mental mistakes, fouling Caitlin Clark twice from three-point range. Once they calmed down, you could see that this team's really good, chipping away at that lead. They went into halftime leading by 3. And the third quarter, they distanced themselves a bit. Freshman Tessa Johnson got hot from outside, finishing with a team-high 19 points off the bench and really sparking her team to go on a run and push that lead. It was a true team effort, though, with South Carolina. They'd end up using the second half momentum, and they took the championship 87-75. I mentioned how the Gamecocks were bullying inside. It all stemmed from 6'7" Camila Cardoso. Iowa had no answer for her inside. She finished 15 points, 17 boards, 3 blocks. She won most outstanding player. Her presence threw off the Hawkeyes on both sides of the floor. Transfer from Oregon to Hanny Pau, huge in this game. 3 for 4 from three-point range. Freshman Malaysia Fawiley, sophomore Ashlyn Watkins, they were huge. But probably the biggest impact of the game was by someone who only scored 3 points. Talking about Raven Johnson. We remember her last year in that Final Four semifinal match. She was getting waved off by Caitlin Clark, daring her to shoot as she couldn't contribute offensively. This year, she didn't shoot very well in this game, but what she did to Caitlin Clark was massive. She made her work for everything, literally holding her hand in her face. It wasn't the perfect revenge, but it was a sweet one. She got the win. And the thing I love is, she was getting waved off last season. She could have just cried about it, but she realized I need to work on my game. And she worked on it, and she came through in the biggest game. After the game, she said the revenge tour is complete. I love it. Clark did all she could for Iowa, right? Finishing 30 points, 8 boards, 5 dimes. It just wasn't enough. My biggest drawback on Iowa coming into this tournament was their lack of depth, and it really showed in the big game. Offensive star from the semifinal, Hannah Stilke, she spent more time on the bench in the final because she couldn't really do much with Cardoso inside, giving up 5 inches. They went with a bigger body of Addison O'Grady. It didn't really help defensively either, and it hurt them offensively. But, hey, big shout-out to South Carolina, going unbeaten on the season, perfect 38-0 record. Only the 10th time that's happened. South Carolina's just the 5th school to achieve the feat. 3rd championship in the program's history. 3rd for head coach Dawn Staley. Such a great coach. Another person I enjoy watching and listening to. A type of coach you'd love to play for. And losing Cardoso to the WNBA is huge, but this team's getting a lot of its players back. I'm expecting Malaysia Fawiley to have a great season next year as well. She showed some flashes. Her athleticism is crazy. I'm expecting her to have a great season next year. But, this team could repeat. They could do, we'll get to the men's part, but they could repeat here. But I talked up women's college basketball all season, probably the most I've ever watched in my life this past season. Great players all over the place, like I mentioned, Caitlin Clark, Cardoso, Aaliyah Edwards, they're all going to the WNBA next season. But you've heard me mention some other name, right? Like South Carolina's Malaysia Fawiley, Chloe Kitts on that team, Ashlyn Watkins, Sanya Fegan, Raven Johnson, Bree Hall, Tessa Johnson. They're all going back to South Carolina. I mentioned UConn getting a lot of their injured players back. Iowa State's Audie Crooks will continue to cook. Notre Dame's Hannah Hidalgo will only get better. Oregon State, Reagan Beers. Texas, Madison Booker. She is very impressive to watch. I'm excited to see how they all gain experience going in the next season. But I mentioned it earlier, Juju Watkins at USC. She might be the best of the bunch. A player I can't wait to watch next season. But congrats, Dawn Staley, South Carolina Gamecocks, great season. Last bit of women's basketball quick mention. One of those teams that lost in the Final Four, LSU, Haley Van Lith, I guess. She's transferring. She's going into the transfer portal, not going to the WNBA, so I'm interested to see where she ends up next season. That brings us to the men's side of the tournament with all the excitement of the women's bracket. How are you going to live up to this? UConn were in a Final Four bout with surprising number 4 Alabama. UConn only led by 4 at halftime, but then the Huskies did what the Huskies did. And this is what they do the last few tournaments. They'd end up going on a huge run, winning by over 20 points, beating Bama by 24 as they punched their tickets to the championship game. Future first-round pick Stephon Castle was huge in that game, finishing with 21 points. But big credit to Alabama. They went on a run, made it to their first Final Four. Big shout out to Mark Sears. That Bama point guard, he gave me some Jalen Brunson vibes for sure. Purdue faced NC State in a battle of bigs between Zach Edey and tournament darling DJ Burns. Burns struggled a bit against the size of Edey, and again, Edey had a 20-point, 10-rebound game, finishing with 20 points and 12 boards. Wolfpack guard Michael O'Connell picked up an early injury, and that didn't help the Wolfpack's chances. Purdue held on to the 13-point win and advanced to the finals. Like I said, I do this show Monday, but it's Tuesday. I was originally just going to preview the final of the NCAA men's tournament, but it was on, so I watched it, right? We're covering it. That's what we do. Number 1 UConn taking on number 1 Purdue in the battle at number 1s, just like the women's final. UConn looking to become the first team to win back-to-back championships since Florida did it in 2007, while Purdue was only in their second NCAA championship game ever and first time since 1969. UConn's big man Donovan Clingan going up against back-to-back National Player of the Year Canadian Zach Edey. A battle of bigs that reminds me of basketball from my youth. Zach Edey got off to a great start for Purdue. He was killing it inside, and this game looked like it was going to be a classic. Then UConn, they do what they do. They came out swinging in that second half, and they went on a run. Zach Edey was a little exposed out there, and on some of those pick and rolls, Samson Johnson, when he rolled to the hoop, there was not much Edey could do. And if it wasn't Edey or Braden Smith, Purdue was struggling. Tristan Newton, man, he was on fire for UConn. 20 points, 7 dimes, 5 boards. He'd win MOP in this game. Combine that with potential lottery pick Stephon Castle. Cam Spencer was huge for the Huskies. Edey didn't get the support. I know Edey's a little stoic out there at times, and probably the reason he's not considered a high draft pick. But come on, this guy won back-to-back National Player of the Year awards, 37 points and 10 boards. Granted, a lot of that was in garbage time, but I'm not going to hate on Edey at all. I've read since this game ended how bad of an NBA player he'll be. Before we continue to shitpile on this guy, this team lost to a 16 seed last year, and they bounced back, made the championship game. I still think he could be an okay center in the league. I read some comparisons. The Clippers' big man, Ivica Zubac, and I like that one. He's a little more mobile than Edey, I'd say, but Edey's a little bigger. If he can have that kind of impact in the NBA, I think that'd be pretty good. And for UConn, what can I say? That's one of the best college teams we've seen in a long time. It's the reason teams don't win back-to-back. A lot of teams do the one and done. Those Florida teams that did in 2006, 2007, they had some good guys coming back. With NIL, maybe this will keep guys staying in college more, and we can see this trend continue, but congrats to UConn winning their 6th championship, which is 3rd in all time in men's NCAA basketball. Before I leave college hoops, some massive news in the men's game. One of the best coaches and recruiters in college basketball history, John Calipari, it's leaving Kentucky for SEC rivals Arkansas. This is a shocker. I had to double take that. Didn't seem real. Kentucky, a blue blood basketball school, a team Cal's been with for 15 seasons, and he's just going to Arkansas. And it was kind of a weird series of events that set this up. So SMU fired Rob Lanier. They were able to snag Andy Enfield from USC. So Musselman leaves Arkansas to join USC, and now Calipari is heading the Razorback country. People say the transfer portal wild. This coaching portal is crazy. I'm interested to see the makings of this deal. I don't know how long the contract is or what the money is, but wow, everyone's on the move, Portals for everybody. Craziness of college basketball. I can't wait for next season already. We had a lot of midweek footy We had the Coppa Italia first leg go down. First leg of the semifinals, Juventus would get 2 second half goals, one by Chiesa, one by Vlahovic, and Lazio wouldn't even register a shot as Juventus take 2-0 to win at home in the first leg. The other semifinal match, Fiorentina and Atalanta, Ronaldo Mandragora's 31st minute goal would be the difference as Fiorentina pick up the win. The second legs of those finals will be played in another 2 weeks. In Germany, you had the Pokal Cup semifinals getting played. Second division side Kaiserslautern entered the magical run of third-tier club Saarbrücken. Kaiserslautern would get 2 second-half goals to punch their ticket to the Pokal Cup final, but Saarbrücken, fun to say, and what a run they had, knocking out Bayern Munich, Eintracht Frankfurt, Mönchengladbach, knocking them all out, all Bundesliga teams on their historic run. Gave their fans a great show this season. Other semifinals between unbeaten in competitions, Leverkusen taking on second division Dusseldorf. Xabi Alonso's side showed dominance the whole game. Frimpong would score 7 minutes in. Leverkusen would add 3 more, winning 4-0, possessing 72% of the ball. But similar to my praise for Saarbrücken, heck of a run for Dusseldorf. They can now put their efforts into trying to get promotion to the Bundesliga. They sit third in the Bundesliga second division at the moment. Pokal Cup between Kaiserslautern and Leverkusen will take place Saturday, May 25th. Let's go to France. Why not? The French Cup. The Coupe de France had their semifinals. Lyon would face second division side Valenciennes. After a scoreless first half, Lyon would earn a penalty where Lacazette would score from the spot. Lyon would add 2 more goals, including another by Lacazette. They easily punched their tickets to the final. Tough go for Valenciennes, who are not only out of this tournament, they sit in last place in the second division, are probably getting relegated to third division. So tough go for them right now. The other semifinal between PSG and Rennes, this game was much closer than the other semifinal, with the only goal being scored in the 40th minute by Kylian Mbappe, as PSG held on to win 1-0. Much like the Pokal Cup, the Coupe de France will be played Saturday, May 25th. Lyon, PSG. Should be a good one. When the Copa del Rey final was on the weekend, there wasn't any La Liga matches. There was a makeup game midweek in the Spanish top division. Granada hosted Valencia. Andre Almeida would score in the 77th minute to give Valencia the big road victory. Granada's 5th loss in the row as they fall deeper in the relegation zone. I mentioned the Copa del Rey final. Big match went down Saturday between Athletic Bilbao and Mallorca. Mallorca opened the scoring after a few different shot attempts. Couldn't even get to the net. Ball would come to Danny Rodriguez, who curled a beauty in, giving Mallorca the lead after 21 minutes. Looked like Bilbao had equalized, but the goal was disallowed due to offsides. Early in the second half, Athletic Bilbao would get their equalizer, and this one would count. Lovely passing led to Sanchez getting the ball and finishing perfectly, tying the game after 51 minutes. We'd have no more goals. We'd go to penalties with a trophy on the line. After each team scored on their first attempt, Mallorca's second would get stopped by the keeper. Their third went way over the net, giving Athletic Bilbao their 24th Copa del Rey title. First title in 4 years. Massive win for the club. Always good to get hardware. Goes to the Premier League. They didn't have cup games during the week. They had Premier League games. You'd start off with Nottingham Forest getting a 3-1 win over Fulham. Justin Kluivert scored the lone goal for Bournemouth in their 1-0 win over Crystal Palace. Arsenal beat Luton Town 2-0. Man City were tied with Villa 1-1 at one point. Then Phil Foden went crazy, scoring 3 unanswered goals to secure the hat-trick and help get the 4-1 win for Man City. Liverpool were all even at 1 with Sheffield United after a 58th own goal, but for Sheffield. Liverpool did not panic, and they added 2 more goals to secure the win. I mean, Liverpool had 83% of the ball, so victory was probably inevitable anyway. A few other matches all finished in draws. Everton's Dominic Calvert-Lewin would score a late penalty to tie the game at 1 in their draw with Newcastle. Burnley and Wolves would each score a goal in the first half, but they played to a 1-1 draw. 2 goals in the first 19 minutes led to a West Ham and Tottenham 1-1 draw, and Brentford hosted Brighton, and despite the visitors dominating possession, that would end a scoreless draw. The game of the midweek was between Chelsea and Man U. This game was a roller coaster on a roller coaster. Conor Gallagher would open the scoring for Chelsea just 4 minutes into the match. Then Cole Palmer would convert on a penalty in the 19th minute, and Chelsea were looking good, up 2-0. And then a dreadful Chelsea giveaway would lead to Garnacho scoring in the 34th minute, and Bruno Fernandes would tie the game up at 2 just 5 minutes later. In the second half, Man U would take the lead for the first time when an outside the boot cross by Antony would find Garnacho, who would head it into the net, putting United up 3-2. Looked like they were having things going their way, and then a tough penalty call on United's Dallo led to Cole Palmer getting his second penalty of the game, and just like the first, he'd score that one, tying the game at 3. And then not even a minute later, they were getting deep in stoppage time. Chelsea would get a corner kick. Man, you were a little slow. They weren't paying attention. The quick corner found a wide open Cole Palmer, blasted it at the net, taking a deflection on the win, giving Chelsea the crazy 4-3 win. A dramatic game between two teams that are known for being at the top of the table, but wow, what a dandy. Those games brought us into the weekend Premier League matchups. You'd have Crystal Palace hosting Man City, and they jump out to a quick lead. 4 minutes in, Mateta would score, but that awoke the champions, and Man City scored 4 unanswered. Palace would get one more back, but it would be a 4-2 road win for City. My West Ham went on the road to play some Wolves, and it was an interesting one. Emerson took down a Wolves player in the box, awarding a penalty where Pablo Sarabia would step up and score from the spot, putting Wolves up 1-0 after 33 minutes. It looked like Wolves were the better team. Then the second half, things got worse for West Ham. Our boy, Jared Bowen, picked up a knock and would have to leave the pitch. It looked like we equalized, but VAR said, no. Emerson fouled someone before. I thought that was a brutal call, but it could have been my West Ham bias. But West Ham would get a stroke of luck. Emerson would go to cross it. It would hit Max Kilman's hand in the box, giving West Ham a penalty. Lucas Paqueta, a Brazilian man, would step up, scoring from the spot, tying the game after 73 minutes. We get a corner kick. We have one of the best spot takers, free kick takers around. James Ward-Prowse would take this corner kick, and he'd put it right into the net, scoring the Olympico, scoring right off a corner kick, no touch, giving West Ham the 2-1 lead. It looked like Wolves captain Max Kilman, who had picked up the handball earlier, it looked like he tied the game late off a corner kick. I yelled, damn it, pretty loud when I saw that. But VAR said West Ham's keeper, Fabianski, had his vision blocked by a Wolves player who was in an offside position, making it offsides. I thought it was a brutal call. I mean, as a West Ham fan, I'll take a win, but when you hear commentators say it's a subjective offsides, I don't like that shit. But hey, we'll take the 3 points. But even West Ham manager David Moyes said he felt bad for Wolves manager Gary O'Neill after that call. Craziness, but that's the Premier League. Elsewhere in the Premier League, Everton picked up a 1-0 win over Burnley. The only goal was pretty greasy. Burnley keeper Muric was taking his sweet time, and when he went to clear the ball, it kind of just ricocheted off for a pressuring Calvin Lewis, giving him one of the easiest goals of his career, and more importantly, giving Everton their first win in 13 matches. Newcastle would have a goal disallowed quite unfairly by VAR, another one, but soon after that goal, they'd get one that counted. I always mess his name up. Guy-Marsh found the corner of the net, and as Newcastle went into London and beat Fulham 1-0, Luton Town hosted Bournemouth, and you didn't know which way this game would go after a scoreless first half. Bournemouth would grab the lead 7 minutes into the second half when Marcus Tavernier would score a goal. Then in the 73rd minute, Jordan Clark would score his first Premier League goal to tie it up for Luton Town. Then in the 90th minute, captain Carlton Morris would find the back of the net to give Luton Town the big home win, as they're in the middle of a relegation battle. Arsenal went on the road and thrashed Brighton 3-0. Goals by Saka, Havertz, and former Brighton man Leandro Trossard in that one. Tottenham would go into halftime, tied at 1 with Forest, but they'd get 2 second-half goals, one by Mickey Van de Ven and Pedro Porro got the other as they got the 3-1 home victory. The rest of the results in the Premier League were draws. Villa hosted Brentford in a thrilling match where Villa was up 2-0 after 46 minutes. Then in a 9-minute stretch, Brentford were suddenly leading 3-2. Quick free kick led to Whistler putting the visitors ahead. Then the 80th minute, Ollie Watkins would rise above a crowd for a powerful header, his second of the match, tying the game at 3, which is how it would end. Another big-time matchup was between rivals Man U and Liverpool. Luis Diaz put Liverpool ahead in the 23rd minute, but Liverpool should have had way more goals. So many chances, but they couldn't convert. And this would prove to be costly as Man U would tie it up just 5 minutes into the second half. A bad Liverpool giveaway right to Bruno Fernandes, who caught Kelleher way off the line, and he just chipped it over into the net. And then the 67th minute, 18-year-old Kobe Mainu, he'd curl a beauty into the net, giving Man U the 2-1 lead. The pressure was building for Liverpool, and they were getting a little nervy. Aaron Wan-Bissaka would take down Elliott in the box and giving Liverpool a penalty chance. Mo Salah, he'd convert from the spot, tying the game up at 2. Liverpool would get more pressure and more pressure, but they couldn't get that goal. They settled for the draw at Old Trafford. Chelsea were feeling pretty good after beating United midweek, and they were going in to take on Sheffield United. 11 minutes in, Thiago Silva would score, giving Chelsea the early lead. Just like Liverpool, they had tons of chances, but they couldn't convert them, and this was costly as Jayden Bogle tied the game up for Sheffield United in the 32nd minute. The second half, Madueke would put Chelsea up again with a nice goal in the 66th minute. But then in stoppage time, Chelsea were making some time-wasting substitutions. Seconds later, deep ball by United was handled terribly by Chelsea. The ball found its way to Ollie McBurney. McBurney put it in, tying the game at 2 in the 93rd minute. Frustration for Chelsea. They should have had the 3 points. And, any point is a good point for United. Sheffield United, they're struggling at the bottom of the table. So we look at that table. After 2 games being played since last week's episode, we have one hell of a title race going on. Arsenal and Liverpool are tied at 71 points atop the table. Arsenal leading on goal difference. In that third spot, just 1 point behind the shared leaders, is Man City. 3 teams vying for the title, which is probably going to be decided in like the last week of the season. That's the excitement you want to end the season. Tottenham sit in that 4th spot, tied with Aston Villa on points, but ahead of them on goal difference. Looking at the bottom of the table, Sheffield United, I mentioned, they're in the basement of the league with 16 points. They have a game in hand, though. Burnley are 19th, 3 points ahead of Sheffield United. Luton Town sit in 18th with 25 points. They're tied with Forest on points, but Forest have a better goal differential, which is why I was emphasizing the importance of that Luton Town win. We have a tight race now at the top and the bottom. Go to Germany. The Bundesliga resumed after some Pokal Cup play midweek. Eintracht Frankfurt hosted Werder Bremen to kick off the weekend after a scoreless first half. Second half would have Bremen going ahead in the 62nd minute, but the visitors would go down, and the visitors would go a man down when Jens Stage was given a direct red, inspiring the home side as Tuta would equalize, and then they'd go a man down. Frankfurt goal scorer would get dismissed just 12 minutes after his goal. And a wild second half where the game ended 1-1. Freiburg would host Leipzig. After the visitors scored less than 2 minutes into the match, it was all Leipzig. They'd go on to beat Freiburg 4-1. Mainz would host Darmstadt, and the visitors would have costly errors all over the field, especially on the defensive end that led to goals. Mainz took the easy 4-0 win, and they've kind of had a resurgence since hiring manager Bo Henriksen. After a few matches that had crazy comebacks, Bayern Munich were on the road visiting Heidenheim. They looked pretty good, going in the halftime with a 2-0 lead after goals from Harry Kane and Serge Gnabry. Heidenheim had to switch things up, made 3 subs at half, and those subs pulled off. Not even 5 minutes into the second half, Kevin Sassa would get his first Bundesliga goal. Then a minute later, not even, Tim Kleindienst would tie the game up at 2 with a lovely finish. They'd ride that momentum and stun Bayern when Kleindienst would get his brace, his second goal of the match, putting Heidenheim up with 3-2 in the 79th minute, pulling off the crazy comeback, potentially giving Bayern Munich its title death blow in the process. Another ridiculous comeback took place in Cologne, where the Billy Goats hosted Bochum. After a scoreless first half, Felix Pasalic would open the scoring for the visitors, and it looked like Bochum were going to pick up a road win. But then Stefan Teagues would rise up and score a header, his first goal of the season, tying the game up at 1 in the 90th minute. And while the crowd was still buzzing, Cologne would get their second goal just 2 minutes after their first. Luka Waschmidt nicely putting Cologne up in stoppage time. The crowd went crazy. They had tears of disappointment, the tears of joy. In a matter of minutes, a massive result, and Cologne's in their relegation battle. Leverkusen went to the German capital, and Florian Wirtz would score a penalty to give the unbeatens another win. Unbeaten in 41 matches now across all competitions. They've now equaled a Bundesliga unbeaten record of 28 along the way. It's been a privilege to watch this historic team this season. There's a lot of hype on the game leading up to the Borussia Dortmund and Stuttgart battle. The on-fire Seru Garasti scoring again, putting Stuttgart up 1-0, and that's how the game would end. Huge road win for Stuttgart as their magical season continues, and a tough loss for Dortmund. They had just beat Bayern Munich last weekend to extend their winning streak to 4 league games. Maybe their eyes were on the next fixture midweek, but tough loss for them. Hoffenheim hosted Augsburg and would secure the 3 points with a 3-1 home win. Wolfsburg went up 1-0, only 7 minutes into their match with Mönchengladbach. But the home side took the lead. The home side took the lead into the halftime, but Mönchengladbach would wake up in the second. 2 goals within 6 minutes of each other, followed by a late third, giving the Mönchengladbach the big 3-1 win over Wolfsburg. As we look at the Bundesliga table, Leverkusen, 76 points, basically have this championship wrapped up. Their 16-point cushion over second place Bayern Munich. Third place Stuttgart they're tied with Bayern Munich. And I mentioned Bayern Munich, Stuttgart even on points. Bayern's got the goal difference advantage. Leipzig and Dortmund are tied for fourth spot, with Leipzig having the advantage due to goal difference. So leaving Dortmund on the outside of the top 4 looking in. Serie A, after some, like I said, Coppa Italia in midweek, we return to Serie A on the weekend. Salernitana kicked off the weekend hosting Sassuolo. That would end in a 2-2 draw. Milan hosted Lecce and played to an easy 3-0 win. Pulisic, Olivier Giroud, and Rafael Leao picking up goals in the win. Derby match between Roma and Lazio would only have 1 goal. A powerful header by Roma's Mancini, giving them the 1-0 win. Empoli hosted Torino in a thriller. After Empoli scored just 6 minutes in, Zapata would equalize for Torino in the 60th minute. 14 minutes later, Empoli would score. Then at stoppage time, Zapata would get his second to tie things up, only for Empoli to go up for the 3rd time in the match, scoring in the 94th minute. Crazy win for Empoli in a wild match there. Monza hosted Napoli in another crazy game where Monza went up early with Duric scoring in the 9th minute. Game stayed that way until the second half, where Victor Osimhen would show off his spring, skying above everyone and scoring. Then not even 2 minutes later, Napoli doubled their lead when Palatano would score, and then Zielinski would curl in a beauty to give them a 3-1 lead. Then immediately after this kickoff, Monza would respond, where Colponi would curl one in. Not to be done, Raspadori would score for Napoli, and they'd make it 4-2. 5 goals, 15 minutes. Big road win for Napoli in that crazy game. If you went to go to the bathroom at that time, you were probably choked. Verona went up 1-0 in the 8th minute. 2 second-half goals would propel Genoa to their surprise win over Verona. Gianluca Samacca put Atalanta up 1-0 after 13 minutes, but Agello would get one back before halftime, and Cagliari's Nicolas Viola would score in the 88th minute to give Cagliari the surprise 2-1 win over Atalanta, despite Atalanta having 63% of the ball. Juventus hosted Fiorentina in a big matchup in the 21st minute. Defender Gatti would finish. That goal would be the only one in the match as Juventus picked up the 1-0 win. The only draw of the weekend between Frosinone and Bologna. Despite having 66% of the ball, Bologna could not score. Frosinone actually had just as many chances, but that would end in a scoreless draw. The last match of the week was on Monday with Udinese surprising Inter Milan when they'd score in the 40th minute. With 10 minutes into the second half, Calhanoglu would convert from the spot to tie the game at 1. It looked like the game would be a draw until Inter struck the post late and David Fratesi tapped in the stoppage time game winner. As we look at the Serie A table, title's pretty much been decided, much like in Germany. Inter Milan have a huge lead at the top of the table. Second place Milan, 14 points behind them. Juventus in the 3rd spot, 6 points behind AC Milan. And Bologna still holding on to that 4th spot, 3 points ahead of Roma. The bottom of the table might be where most of the action is. Salernitana, they're probably getting relegated, sitting at the basement of the table with 15 points. Above them is where things get interesting. Sassuolo are in 19th with 25 points. Frosinone just above them in 18th with 26 points. And then above them from 13th to 17th, there's only a 3-point difference. So all of those teams are potentially in danger. Cagliari, Lecce, Udinese, Empoli, Verona, all those teams need to be playing some good footy over the next bit. They're going to be in Serie B next season, or Serie B. I don't know how they say it in Italy. Liga kicked off this weekend. Lille hosting Marseille. Canadian Jonathan David scoring 9 minutes into the second half from the penalty spot. Cabela would double their lead. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang would get one back, but Lille would add a third to take the big 3-1 win. Brest hosted Metz in a wild match. Visiting Metz would score 6 minutes in, but Brest would equalize 6 minutes later. Then in a 7-minute span, Brestois would go up 3-1 after Satriano's goal made it 4-1. Mikadadze would get 2 goals in 6 minutes to make it 4-3. Metz tried to come back, but they came up a little short as Brestois held on. Montpellier would host Lorient and beat them 2-0 with 2 second-half goals. A first-half goal by Monaco's El Caluche would be the only goal of the match, as Monaco and Rennes each picked up a red card in the second half, but no more goals, and Monaco would win 1-0. Nantes would get an opening goal in the 16th minute, and they seemed to have control of the game. But then in a 2-minute span, Lyon would get goals from Lacazette and Fofana to take the 2-1 lead. They'd add another in stoppage time to take the big win. Big win for Lyon there. The rest of the games over the weekend ended in draws. Lens and Le Havre would each score a second-half goal in their 1-1 match. Clermont-Foot went to the French capital and scored a goal in the 32nd minute to take the lead over PSG. But PSG really cranked it up, had 73% of the ball, finally getting their goal in the 85th minute through Gonçalo Ramos. That game was 1-1, so a really historic night for Clermont-Foot. Anytime they can get a point against PSG is big in their books. Toulouse versus Strasbourg and Reims versus Nice both ended in 0-0 draws. Which takes us to the Ligue 1 table. PSG, much like a few of the other leagues I just mentioned, they have a pretty big cushion at the top of the lead. 10-point cushion over second place Brestois. Monaco just 1 point behind Brest in the third spot. Lille sit 3 points behind Monaco in the fourth. The bottom of the table, a tight race for that relegation battle. Clermont-Foot in the last place with 21 points. Metz only 2 points above them in 17th. Lorient sit 3 points ahead of Metz in that relegation playoff spot. Nantes and Le Havre are just 2 points out of that spot. So, got to be on caution in the bottom of that league as well. Let's talk some Champions League. We'll wrap up some European footy with what just went down here, hyping up the Champions League and Europa. Big-time matchups in the Champions League this week. Tuesday, your Premier League side title hopefuls, Arsenal. We haven't been this far in the tournament since 2010. The Gunners will be hosting Bayern Munich. You've heard me talk about the Bavarian Giants' struggles earlier in this episode in the Bundesliga. With their league struggles, I wouldn't be surprised if they threw caution to the wind in this one to try to get the win at the Emirates. The other game, another big game. This should be a final. Real Madrid hosting Man City. A battle of titans taking place at the Bernabeu. Like I said, a shame that it's this early in the tournament. Wednesday matches are just as juicy. PSG hosting Barcelona. Last year and probably this year's Ligue 1 champions taking on last year's La Liga champions. 2 big-time clubs that should dazzle us in Paris. Then the other quarterfinal matchup between Atletico Madrid and Borussia Dortmund. Atletico's had a nice break in between games, while Dortmund's coming off that disappointing loss to Stuttgart. Should be a good game as well. Like I said, fantastic games, and we won't have to wait long for the second legs, as they'll be taking place next week. After those huge games in the Champions League, Thursday brings us a nice slate of games as well. Premier League title hopefuls Liverpool host Italian side Atalanta. We've been struggling the last bit. Portuguese side Benfica host French side Marseille. AC Milan host Roma in an all-Serie A match. And my West Ham, we get the next chance to try to take on the unbeatens. West Ham goes into Germany to take on Leverkusen. I mean, they got to lose sometime. Why not now? Maybe West Ham will do it. Like I said, fantastic matches coming up. Quarterfinals, good matchups. Big bummer still that Man City's having to play Real Madrid this early. Too soon. That should be a finals matchup. Quick MLS shout out. There is footy going on in North America. TFC crossed the country, just gets skunked by Vancouver. Whitecaps taking a 4-0 win. Lionel Messi returned to the lineup for Inter Miami. He was substituted in the game with the Colorado up 1-0. He'd score a goal just being on the pitch for 12 minutes. That's 3 minutes later, Alfonso would give Miami the lead, but Colorado would score in the 88th minute to secure the draw. The New York Red Bulls beat Cincinnati. Philadelphia would beat Nashville. Some high-scoring games saw Seattle shut out Montreal 5-0. Austin would score 11 minutes in the stoppage time to secure a 4-3 win over San Jose. Tale of two halves saw Sporting KC lead 3-0 going into halftime. Just for Portland to score three unanswered and tie the game and secure the draw there. The biggest game was in LA, the El Trafico between LAFC and LA Galaxy. LAFC would open the scoring just 4 minutes into the match. Then Ade would equalize in the 29th minute for the Galaxy. But LAFC would get a penalty chance minutes later, and Buanga would convert from the spot. LAFC take the El Trafico. From footy to the hockey rinks, the NHL is getting crazy as the regular season is coming to a conclusion soon. Things are really getting interesting as more teams clinch playoff spots, leaving less playoff spots available to the rest of them. In the West, the Central leading Dallas Stars have been playing some of their best hockey all year. At just the right time, winning a huge game against rivals Colorado, taking that game 7-4. Stars looking like legit title contenders, and you can say they're hot right now. You can't count out those Colorado Avalanche who they just beat, or the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, they haven't looked as good as the Stars lately, but they've both clinched spots in the West, so they're playoff bound. The Pacific Division, the Canucks still lead the division, and the Oilers are nipping at their heels. Both those Canadian teams have already punched their tickets to the playoffs. That last Pacific spot's still up. The Kings and Knights seem to be battling it out and trying to avoid the wild card spot, but that could be coming down to the end. St. Louis and Minnesota are on the outside looking in, hoping for some magic to end their season. Out east, the top three teams in the Atlantic have all locked up playoff spots. The division-leading Bruins are kicking ass on their 4-game winning streak. Panthers just behind them, with the Maple Leafs just behind them. Tampa Bay, also in that division, have clinched up a wild card spot. Like I said, those 4 teams all playoff bound. The Metropolitan Division's a little trickier. Division leading New York Rangers and close second Carolina Hurricanes are both already playoff bound. The rest of the spots open are interesting. The Islanders have that 3rd spot in the Metropolitan Division. I mentioned the Lightning have one wild card spot lined up, just leaving one left. So the Atlantic's Detroit Red Wings, they have that one spot. But they're being hunted by the Penguins, Capitals, and my Philadelphia Flyers. The Devils and Sabres are still in the running, but they're probably not in. They're tough playoff odds. But big-time hockey coming up here. Some teams, this is already the playoffs. Looking at the stats, still a tight race at the top of the league. Tampa Bay's Nikita Kucherov leading the league with 136 points. Colorado's Nathan MacKinnon just behind him at 133. Connor McDavid of Edmonton just behind them at 130 points. Goal leader, still Austin Matthews of Toronto, 64. The only other 2 players to pass the half-century mark, still Florida's Sam Reinhart and Edmonton's Zach Hyman. Looking at the goaltenders, the guys with the top numbers haven't played enough games, like Florida's Stallars, Carolina's Peter Kochetkov, even though their numbers are really good. So I'm looking at games played, solid numbers. Winnipeg's Connor Hellebuck, he's been killing it, solid goals against and save percent. Looking at the rookies, number 1 overall pick, Connor Bedard, still leading the league in points with 59. New Jersey's Luke Hughes, 14 points behind him. Rookie goal race is a little tighter. Bedard's still leading the way at 22, with Minnesota's Marco Rossi 1 behind him. Going to baseball, it's been in full swing, unless you've been a fan of the Blue Jays. They're splitting their series with the Rays to start the season. The Blue Jays flew to Houston to take on the Astros, and it did not start off well. The Jays were no-hit by Ronald Blanco, the first no-hitter of the season. The 30-year-old Dominican was making his 8th major league start and never pitched more than 6 innings, but he definitely had the Jays number that night. Blanco's team backed him up as well as they killed the Jays 10-0. The Jays would play better in the second game, taking the 2-1 win, but in the finale in Houston, it would go about as well as the first game. They'd muster up 1 hit in the 8-0 loss, becoming the first team since 1901 to be victimized by a no-hitter and a one-hitter within their first 7 games of the season. That's not a good stat by any means. The Jays slowly are making their way home as they would take on the Yankees in New York, stealing the first game after having a rough go against former Blue Jay Marcus Stroman. 1 run in the 7th, followed by 2 more in the 9th, gave the Jays the win. The Jays would go on to lose the next 2 games, dropping the series to the Yankees. But hey, the Jays are finally home, migrating like a lot of birds. They host the Seattle Mariners in a series before hosting National League Colorado. Hopefully the Jays can get some wins with some home cooking. In the Jays division, the tough AL East, the Yankees are leading the division with the Red Sox right behind them. Maybe things are returning to the hierarchy of years past. Hopefully not for much longer, though, because I want to see the Jays go on a run. The AL Central is being led by the Cleveland Guardians, while the White Sox are really struggling. They just have one win on the season. The AL West is full of teams that are playing at a level of mediocrity. The Athletics, though, yikes. They've had embarrassing showings at their stadium. Protest or not, it's been very weird. It was announced the A's will play their next 3 seasons at the Sutter Health Park in Sacramento starting in 2025. After that, they will complete their full-time move to Vegas in 2028. Another team leaving Oakland. It's been rough for them. The Warriors crossed the bridge to go to San Francisco. The Raiders went to Vegas, and now the A's are following suit. The National League, probably one of the biggest surprises, is the National League Central Division. Pittsburgh out to the hot start leading the division, but right now all those teams are 500 or better. I did not figure the NL Central to be the best division in baseball, but it's early. The Atlanta Braves, they're still leading the NL East, but they've been dealt tough injuries. Spencer Strider, big one for them. It's just brutal. Such a bummer. The Braves are damn good though, and they're built to overcome these injuries. I mean, if anyone can do it, it's probably them. The Marlins are hurting in the basement of the NL East. Some are saying it's the Kim Ning curse. The former GM was asked to take a demotion after she guided the Marlins back to the playoffs. She said fuck that and bounced, leaving the organization, and maybe these early struggles are karma for the Marlins. The Dodgers have been fun to watch. I still can't believe that lineup, Betts, Ohtani, Freeman. What a 1-2-3. Cubs took that series against them, but the Dodgers have a series with the Twins before facing the team they battled in South Korea, the San Diego Padres. Lots of fun ball. Check it out. F1, the Japanese Grand Prix, went down over the weekend. The race got off to a very slow start. Williams Alex Albon and RB Daniel Ricciardo both involved in an accident where they slammed into the wall. The accident created a mess, resulting in a red flag being waved on the very first lap. The race finally did resume, and we would have a similar outcome that we usually get. Red Bull finishing 1-2. Max Verstappen winning another race. His teammate Sergio Perez in second. Ferrari's Carlos Sainz rounded out the podium, with Sainz's teammate Charles Leclerc finishing just behind him in fourth. It was the 20th race in 22 that Max Verstappen has won, as he absolutely dominates Formula One. Possible trouble looming ahead for Danny Rick and the RB car. His disappointing start to the season. All eyes are on backup driver Liam Lawson right now, and it's some people are not saying if, but when will he replace the Australian driver. I'm hoping Ricardo bounces back. He's great for F1, and he's like my wife's favorite driver. So his teammate and Japanese local Yuki Tsunoda finished 10th in front of the home crowd. McLaren's Lando Norris finished 5th. Teammate Oscar Piastri finished 8th. Mercedes, George Russell finished 7th, while teammate Lewis Hamilton finished 9th. Our next F1 race will take place in a few weeks at the Chinese Grand Prix. But hey, golf, get your golf clap out. The first golf major of the year is coming up this upcoming weekend. The beautiful course in Georgia, Augusta, home of the Masters. Always such a delight to watch. It may not be a surprising choice, my choice to pick to win the Masters, picking the number 1 golfer in the world, Scottie Scheffler. I think he's going to win this. He's going to win the Masters for the second time in his career, but whoever wins it, you get the coolest jacket in sports. Everybody wants that green jacket, but I'm expecting Scheffler to be putting it on at the end of next weekend. Long episode, day late, buck short. We're writing the report. Any Blink-182 stuff. But anyway, we're doing the shorts. This was recorded a little later than usual. Episode's a little longer than usual. So, feel embarrassed. Let's talk some embarrassing moments, eh? First time moving back in my parents after a lengthy relationship ended, you know. Time passed, and it was time to get into a new apartment. I was seeing someone new, a new girlfriend, my now wife. She was helping me. My dad was in the room, and he opened a drawer, you know, finding a little prod. You know, couples like to have fun. And as he looked at it, he said, "Ooh, ride it, cowboy," and kind of whipped it. I have never seen my wife go so red in her life. She turned into a tomato briefly. It was pretty embarrassing, but my dad, he had a way of making these embarrassing moments kind of funny. Now it's a funny moment I have of him, I guess. But yeah, it was really funny. And then another Ren City classic. I was driving the old Plymouth Neon back in the day, holding my wheel all funky, as young teenagers do. I went to do a turn, and I don't know how I was holding the wheel, but my arm got stuck in the steering wheel. I couldn't make the turn. I'm like, am I gonna fucking crash? But I was able to stop the car, brake pedal. And yeah, it all worked out. But man, what a dumb moment. But hey, I wasn't my best moment. Best moments happen to people like UConn going back to back, champions of college basketball, South Carolina going undefeated and winning the title. But we got some craziness winding up. We had the college hoops wind up. Hockey playoffs are on the horizon. If you want NBA stuff, hop back to my channel. Check out that NBA stuff. Comes out every week. That season's winding down. We got more champions, more Champions League, lots of good sports. More shorts. Gotta do some more shit. Bring some more shorts to you. It's short season. It's getting warmer out. But anyway, we could do all kinds of shit like that. Tune in next week for more sports and shorts of sorts. My name's Ren City. Thanks again. Take care. Ren City out.